Hey guys, tonight we travel back thousands of years into the blazing deserts of ancient Egypt. The question is simple yet astonishing. How did the Egyptians sleep during scorching summers that reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius, without air conditioning? In tonight's relaxing journey, we explore the ingenious ways they stayed cool, slept comfortably, and survived extreme heat in one of history's most advanced civilizations. Before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy immersive, sleep-friendly history documentaries. And while you settle in, tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching this video from right now. Dim the lights, get comfortable, and let your mind drift back into the desert nights of ancient Egypt. The sun beats relentlessly across the vast deserts surrounding the Nile. Sand shimmers in the heat. Stone temples glow with golden light. The air feels thick, dry, and almost unbearable to those unprepared for it. Ancient Egyptians had lived in this environment for thousands of years. They adapted, they survived, and they slept. How exactly, however, is what makes this story remarkable. Imagine yourself walking along the banks of the Nile at dusk. The day has been scorching, and the air finally begins to cool as the sun sets. Farmers bring home their harvests, merchants close their market stalls, and artisans finish work on grand statues and temples. Inside the homes of nobles and commoners alike, preparations for sleep begin. But sleep in 120-degree heat is no simple matter. Most structures are built from mud bricks baked by the sun. The walls hold heat long after the sun sets. Stone floors are similarly hot. Without air conditioning or modern fans, Egyptians had to rely on clever techniques to maintain comfort. The first strategy is architecture. Houses are constructed to minimize sun exposure during the day. Windows are small, and high ceilings allow hot air to rise above living spaces. Courtyards with shade-providing plants create cooler pockets of air. Roof terraces, often open to the night sky, serve as sleeping areas during hot evenings. Many Egyptians preferred these terraces, where the desert breeze provided natural cooling and relief from the heat trapped inside their homes. The second strategy is water. Large water jars, pools, and canals store water that absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly at night, lowering surrounding temperatures. Sleeping near water is not only refreshing but also calming, a perfect environment for relaxation before bedtime. The third strategy is bedding and clothing. Egyptians slept on simple reed mats or low beds, often elevated above the floor to catch cooler breezes. Sheets were made from linen, light, breathable, and ideal for the desert climate. Few layers were necessary, and garments were loose to allow air circulation around the body. For the wealthy, beds might be placed in semi-open rooms or roof terraces, where the night air was cooler than inside the packed house. Fans made of woven reeds were sometimes used by attendants to provide gentle breezes. And during the hottest months, sleeping schedules were adapted. Daytime activity decreased. Afternoon naps were taken in shaded areas. Evening and night became the primary time for work, socializing, and sleep preparation. This allowed citizens to avoid the worst heat of midday, aligning their natural circadian rhythm with environmental conditions. Inside royal palaces, strategies were more sophisticated. Large columns create shaded walkways. Pools cool the surrounding air. Bedchambers are located to catch prevailing winds. Stone floors remain slightly damp from stored water to provide a cooling effect. Servants ensure airflow with handheld fans. For pharaohs and nobles, even small details are considered. A strategically placed water basin at the foot of the bed, lightly wetted mats, and silk sheets for maximum comfort. Now imagine the night sky over Giza. Stars sparkle above the pyramids. The desert is still warm, but the breeze from the Nile carries a subtle chill. Citizens of all classes settle into sleep routines adapted to survive and thrive in extreme temperatures. Slaves and labourers rest in cooler corners or outdoor shelters near shaded courtyards. Nobles lie in airy chambers, surrounded by attendants and water basins. Even animals are provided relief. Dogs, cats, and livestock are guided into shaded areas. Yet comfort is not the only concern. Sleep also serves a social and spiritual purpose. Egyptians believed that night was sacred. It is the time when the body rests and the soul reconnects with the divine. Dreams were considered messages from gods. To sleep well, one needed both physical and spiritual harmony. In many homes, quiet rituals signal bedtime. Incense is burned to relax the mind. Lamps provide gentle illumination, and families gather briefly to reflect on the day before resting. The Egyptians understood something we often overlook. A calm mind contributes to restful sleep, even in oppressive heat. Throughout the night, cool breezes sweep across riverbanks and rooftops. The Nile carries moisture and temperature moderation to adjacent streets. The city rests, alive with the soft sounds of distant water and occasional nocturnal animals. Even in 120 degrees Fahrenheit summers, the careful combination of architectural design, strategic bedding, use of water, adjusted schedules, and spiritual preparation allowed ancient Egyptians to sleep and wake refreshed. It is remarkable how a civilization without modern technology mastered comfort through observation, ingenuity, and adaptation. Tonight, as you imagine yourself lying on a woven reed mat, under the cool night sky of ancient Egypt, surrounded by shadows of towering mud brick walls, and listening to distant murmurs of the Nile, you may begin to feel the calming rhythm of life thousands of years ago. As the first night deepens, the city quiets. Only the whispering wind, the occasional splash from the Nile, and the distant calls of desert creatures break the silence. People sleep. The heat is softened by the clever use of materials and knowledge passed through generations. The pharaoh, the merchant, the labourer, all find rest despite the extremes of temperature. And yet, even in these nights, there is an awareness of vulnerability. The Egyptians knew the desert could be merciless. They respected its power, and they designed their lives to survive within its embrace. Tonight we begin understanding not only their physical methods for sleeping in intense heat, but also their mental and spiritual approach to life, rest, and survival. This is the first of our 7 parts exploring sleep in ancient Egypt's extreme summers. We will soon delve deeper into nighttime routines, the lifestyle of different social classes, and how architecture, rivers, and rituals created harmony even in 120 degrees Fahrenheit heat. Stay comfortable, relax, and let your mind drift further into the warm nights of ancient Egypt, where survival, ingenuity, and peaceful sleep intertwine beneath the stars. And as we continue our journey into ancient Egypt's 120 degrees Fahrenheit summers, we begin to uncover the rituals, habits, and lifestyles that allowed people to sleep peacefully despite the sweltering heat. Tonight the Nile glimmers beneath the moonlight. Its waters reflect silver and blue across the city streets. The heat of the day lingers in the air. Stone buildings radiate warmth absorbed during sunlight hours, but darkness brings relief, and people are preparing for the night ahead. The first consideration for Egyptian sleep is timing. Ancient Egyptians often adapted their daily routines to avoid the hottest hours of the day. They rose before sunrise to work along the Nile, tend crops, or engage in construction and trade. By mid-morning, when temperatures climbed to unbearable levels, most citizens rested indoors or in shaded areas. These afternoon rests, akin to modern siestas, allowed the body to recover from extreme heat while conserving energy. Evenings became the prime time for social interactions, family gatherings, and spiritual observances. And as the night deepened, Egyptians settled into their sleep spaces, prepared carefully to achieve comfort despite environmental challenges. Many Egyptians, particularly in urban centres like Thebes and Memphis, had homes designed to maximize airflow. Courtyards acted as natural ventilation systems. High ceilings and open corridors allowed hot air to rise and escape, while cooler breezes entered from shaded windows. Roofs were sometimes used as sleeping areas, where the wind from the Nile brought natural air conditioning. Imagine yourself lying atop a flat rooftop, gazing at countless stars scattered across the desert sky. The warmth of the stone beneath your body contrasts with the cooler night air flowing gently across your skin. Nearby, lanterns flicker softly, casting shadows across walls and pathways. You can hear the distant murmur of the river, the soft sounds of nocturnal creatures, and the faint conversations of late-night passers-by. This sensory environment is carefully balanced. It allows relaxation while maintaining awareness of the surrounding world. Bedding was also adapted to extreme heat. Reeds, mats, and linen sheets created surfaces that allowed air to circulate and moisture to escape. Some households elevated their beds slightly off the floor, which improved airflow beneath the body and prevented heat retention from the stone or mud floors. Wealthier citizens sometimes had attendants fan them while they slept, or positioned water basins near sleeping areas to help cool the immediate environment through evaporation. Even clothing played a role in nighttime comfort. Linen garments, loose and lightweight, provided protection from insects while allowing heat to dissipate from the body. In some cases, minimal clothing or sleeping in the nude during the hottest periods was common, particularly among labourers and peasants, to maximise heat release. Now let's explore the spiritual dimension of Egyptian sleep. For ancient Egyptians, night was sacred. Sleep was a time of renewal and connection to the divine. Dreams were considered messages from gods and ancestors. Therefore, bedtime routines often included prayers, meditations, or small rituals to ensure protection and peace during the night. In the wealthiest households, statues of deities and protective charms were placed near beds to watch over sleepers. Burning incense filled the air with calming fragrances, which not only masked odours from the day, but also helped the mind relax before resting. Imagine a young child lying on a simple reed mat, while a parent softly recites prayers. The light of a small lamp flickers in the corner of the room. The warm air is scented with lotus, myrrh, or frankincense. Outside, the sounds of the city fade as merchants close their shops, and the nocturnal wildlife begins its subtle chorus. In some regions, Egyptians employed ingenious techniques to cool their homes further. Pools of water were placed in courtyards, which acted as evaporative coolers. Wind catchers, high openings in walls and roofs, directed cooler breezes into living areas. Mud bricks absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly at night, providing a consistent temperature gradient that kept interiors relatively comfortable. Sleeping on rooftops became popular during the hottest months. Families would climb to the flat roofs of their homes. They would spread reed mats, possibly sprinkle water over the mats to increase cooling, and settle in under the stars. The Nile breeze provided natural air conditioning. Neighbours might sleep near each other to share cool shade or create communal comfort. Even slaves or labourers adapted creatively. Temporary shelters, shaded areas, or sections of palace grounds were used to escape daytime heat and enjoy cooler night temperatures. Survival in 120 degrees Fahrenheit heat required constant awareness, planning, and adaptability. Now let's consider social hierarchy and sleep practices. Nobles, officials, and priests had more elaborate accommodations. Beds elevated, attendants fanning them, water basins nearby, or even roof terraces specifically for night sleeping. Commoners relied on simple mats, courtyard shade, and natural breezes, yet the underlying principles remained similar: airflow, bedding, water, and timing. In addition to cooling, Egyptians adjusted sleep schedules seasonally. Longer nights during winter allowed more extended sleep. Hot summer nights required shorter intervals of rest with periodic cooling breaks. In some agricultural communities, people would divide sleep between nighttime rest and early morning or late evening naps, aligning their activity patterns with temperature changes. Imagine a merchant walking along a moonlit canal. The city is quiet, his shop closed, lanterns casting golden reflections across the water. He climbs to a rooftop, lays down a reed mat, and listens to the gentle sounds of the Nile. This simple act, repeated across thousands of households, reflects centuries of observation and adaptation to the harsh climate. Even in extreme heat, life continues, and sleep is preserved, not by modern technology, but by human ingenuity and deep understanding of environment and body. Now consider festivals, religious ceremonies, and city-wide gatherings. Even during the hottest periods, life included cultural and spiritual activities. These rituals often extended into cooler evenings after the harsh sun had set. Participants might sleep in temporary spaces near sacred temples, courtyards, or along riverbanks, taking advantage of shade and cooling breezes. The combination of architectural design, natural elements, sleep habits, and spiritual practices ensured that Egyptians remained functional, healthy, and rested despite extreme temperatures. As the night deepens, the city calms, lights dim, the distant sounds of water and wildlife become more pronounced. People settle into rest. The breeze carries cooler air over rooftops and courtyards. Even after days of 120 degrees Fahrenheit heat, the Egyptians adapt beautifully. Their daily lives, routines, and sleep patterns are a testament to human resilience and the art of living harmoniously with nature. Tonight we have explored the foundations of Egyptian sleep practices: timing, architecture, bedding, clothing, water, and spiritual rituals. These insights prepare us for the next part, where we will dive deeper into the nightly lives of different social classes, observing how pharaohs, nobles, artisans, and peasants all slept and cooled themselves under scorching summer nights. Relax, let the desert breeze carry you gently into sleep, and imagine the stillness of the Nile under the moon as thousands of Egyptians drift into rest during 120 degrees Fahrenheit summers. And as the desert breeze moved gently across the Nile beneath the moonlight, Egyptians from every walk of life settled into their own unique sleeping routines. The heat of the day was finally fading. The burning sun that had dominated the sky for hours had disappeared beyond the western horizon. Darkness spread across the land. The great temples stood silent. The markets grew quiet, and the people of Egypt prepared for another night of rest. Yet not everyone slept the same way. Ancient Egyptian society was divided into many levels. There were pharaohs, there were nobles, there were priests, there were merchants, there were craftsmen, and there were labourers and farmers. Each group experienced the Egyptian summer differently, but all of them faced the same challenge. How could a person sleep comfortably when daytime temperatures often reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit? Tonight we begin with the most powerful person in Egypt, the pharaoh. Imagine a massive palace overlooking the Nile. Tall columns support decorated ceilings, pools of water reflect torchlight, palm trees sway gently in the night breeze, servants move quietly through long hallways, and deep inside the palace lies the royal sleeping chamber. Unlike ordinary citizens, the pharaoh had access to the finest comforts available in the ancient world. The royal bed was often elevated above the floor. This allowed air to move beneath it. The mattress might be made from woven materials designed to remain cool. Fine linen sheets covered the sleeping area. Nearby, large jars filled with cool water helped reduce the temperature inside the room. Servants carefully monitored airflow. Some even used large fans made from feathers or woven reeds. The goal was simple: create the coolest environment possible without modern technology. As the pharaoh prepared for sleep, the palace itself became quieter. Torches burned softly. The sounds of the city faded into the distance, and the ruler of Egypt rested beneath carefully designed architecture intended to provide comfort even during the hottest months of the year. Now let us leave the palace and travel into the homes of wealthy nobles. These men and women did not enjoy the same luxury as the pharaoh, but they still possessed significant advantages. Their houses were often large. Courtyards occupied the centre of the home. Shaded gardens provided relief from direct sunlight. and sleeping areas were positioned where breezes could pass through most easily. During especially hot nights, many nobles chose to sleep on rooftop terraces. These flat roofs became natural sleeping platforms beneath the stars. Imagine lying upon a linen-covered bed while looking upward into the vast Egyptian sky. Thousands of stars stretch across the darkness. The air feels cooler than it did during the day. A gentle breeze moves across the rooftop, and somewhere nearby water trickles softly from a decorative basin. The experience feels peaceful, comfortable, almost magical. For wealthy Egyptians, sleep was not merely physical rest. It was also a symbol of status. Beautiful beds, decorated sleeping chambers, protective amulets, and expensive linens all reflected social position. Yet even these comforts could not completely eliminate the summer heat. The desert always remained present. The climate always demanded respect. Now we move farther into the city. Here live merchants and skilled craftsmen. These citizens form the backbone of Egyptian urban life. They build furniture, create jewellery, produce pottery, and operate shops throughout the city. Their homes are smaller than those of nobles, yet they still demonstrate remarkable intelligence in dealing with heat. Walls made from mud brick help regulate indoor temperatures. Small windows reduce direct sunlight, and many homes contain central courtyards where family members gather during the evening. As darkness arrives, activity increases. The hottest part of the day has passed. Children play, neighbours talk, meals are shared, and families enjoy the cooler hours before sleep. Eventually reed mats are spread across rooftops. Simple bedding is arranged, and people settle beneath the stars. The sounds of the city slowly disappear. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, a boat moves quietly along the Nile, and one by one the lights of the city fade. The merchant closes his eyes. The craftsman drifts into sleep, and another day comes to an end. Now let us travel beyond the city walls, out toward the villages and farming communities that line the Nile. Here the majority of Egyptians live. Their lives revolve around agriculture. They wake before sunrise, work long hours, and depend completely upon the river. For farmers, surviving the summer heat requires careful planning. Work begins early, often before dawn. The coolest hours of the day are used for the most demanding tasks. As temperatures rise, activity slows. Shade becomes valuable, water becomes essential, and every opportunity to rest is appreciated. By nightfall, exhaustion settles across the village. Families gather inside simple homes constructed from mud bricks. The walls help block some of the heat accumulated during the day. Yet many people still choose to sleep outside whenever possible. Imagine a farming family resting beside their home. The stars shine overhead, the Nile glimmers nearby, and cool air drifts across the fields. Their bedding is simple, their surroundings modest. Yet the experience is surprisingly comfortable. The natural environment provides what modern air conditioning would eventually replace: fresh air, open space, and gradual nighttime cooling. One remarkable aspect of Egyptian life is how deeply people understood their environment. They did not fight against the climate, they adapted to it. Modern humans often attempt to completely control temperature. Ancient Egyptians instead designed their lives around natural patterns. They understood wind, they understood shade, they understood water, and they understood timing. This knowledge allowed them to thrive where many outsiders would struggle. Now let us visit another important group within Egyptian society: the priests. Priests occupied a unique position. They served the gods, maintained temples, and performed sacred rituals. Their daily lives followed strict routines, including specific practices related to sleep. Many priests viewed sleep as a sacred process. Dreams carried spiritual meaning. Nighttime offered opportunities for divine communication. Before sleeping, prayers were often spoken. Protective symbols might be placed nearby, and rituals helped prepare both body and mind for rest. Inside temple complexes, some priests slept in specially designated areas. These spaces were designed to remain quiet and peaceful. Incense filled the air, stone walls blocked outside noise, and the atmosphere encouraged reflection and calmness. For priests, sleeping well was not only important for health, it was important for spiritual responsibility. As midnight approaches across Egypt, different social classes settle into rest. The pharaoh sleeps within a palace. The noble sleeps upon a rooftop terrace. The merchant sleeps beside a courtyard. The farmer sleeps beneath the open sky. The priest sleeps within temple walls. Their experiences differ, yet they all share one reality: the heat. Every person in Egypt must respect it. Every person must adapt to it, and every person depends upon the coolness of night. The moon climbs higher above the Nile. Silver reflections dance across the water. Palm trees sway gently in the darkness, and the entire civilization enters a period of rest. For a few precious hours, the desert releases its grip. Temperatures fall, bodies recover, and minds relax. The rhythm repeats night after night, year after year, generation after generation. Ancient Egypt survives not because it defeats the desert, but because it learns to live alongside it. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this story. Comfort does not always come from technology. Sometimes it comes from understanding nature, from observing the world carefully, and from adapting wisely to the environment around us. As the stars continue their journey across the sky, thousands of Egyptians sleep peacefully despite the extreme heat that surrounds them. The Nile flows endlessly through the darkness. The temples remain silent, and the desert waits patiently for another sunrise. But our journey is only beginning, because in the next part we will explore the remarkable architecture of ancient Egypt and discover how their homes acted like natural air conditioners thousands of years before electricity was ever invented. For now, relax. Listen to the distant sounds of the river. Feel the gentle desert breeze, and drift deeper into the warm summer nights of ancient Egypt. And as the stars continued their journey across the Egyptian sky, thousands of people slept peacefully beside the Nile, protected not by machines or electricity, but by something far more remarkable: architecture. Tonight we explore one of the greatest secrets behind comfortable sleep in ancient Egypt: the design of the Egyptian home itself. Long before modern air conditioners existed, long before electric fans, long before thermostats, the Egyptians learned how to build homes that worked with nature rather than against it. And during summers that could reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit, this knowledge made all the difference. Imagine yourself standing outside an Egyptian village during the hottest part of the afternoon. The sun burns high overhead. The sand is almost too hot to touch. Heat waves shimmer across the landscape. Even the animals seek shade. To an outsider, survival seems difficult. Yet inside many Egyptian homes, the temperature feels noticeably cooler. Not cold, but comfortable enough to rest, comfortable enough to sleep. How was this possible? The answer begins with mud bricks. Ancient Egyptian builders rarely used stone for ordinary houses. Stone was expensive. Stone was reserved for temples, monuments, and royal structures. Most people lived inside homes made from mud bricks. These bricks were created using Nile mud mixed with straw. The mixture was shaped into blocks and dried beneath the sun. The result was simple, strong, and surprisingly effective. Mud bricks possess a special property. They absorb heat slowly. During the day, the outer walls absorb sunlight, but much of that heat takes hours to travel through the thick walls. By the time the heat reaches the interior, the sun is already beginning to set. This creates a natural delay, a natural cooling system. While the outside world becomes unbearably hot, the inside of the house remains relatively comfortable. Tonight, imagine stepping into one of these homes. Immediately the sunlight disappears. The thick walls block the worst of the heat. The air feels calmer, quieter. The difference may only be a few degrees, but during a 120-degree summer, Even a small difference feels enormous. Ancient Egyptians understood this instinctively. Generation after generation, they improved their building techniques. The next secret involves windows. Modern houses often contain large windows that allow sunlight to flood into rooms. Ancient Egyptians did the opposite. Most windows were small. Many were positioned high on walls. This limited direct sunlight while still allowing airflow. The design reduced heat gain throughout the day. At the same time, cooler breezes could still enter the home. Some houses even featured specially positioned openings designed to capture prevailing winds from the Nile. The result was constant natural ventilation. Imagine lying inside such a room late at night. The day's heat is fading. A gentle breeze enters through a high opening. The air moves slowly across the room. The linen sheets feel cool against your skin. And outside, the stars shine above the desert. The experience feels surprisingly pleasant. The Egyptians understood something modern engineers still respect today. Air movement matters, even when temperatures remain warm. Moving air helps the body release heat more efficiently. This simple principle improved comfort dramatically. Now let us explore another remarkable feature: the courtyard. Many Egyptian homes were built around central courtyards. These open spaces served multiple purposes. They provided light, they provided gathering areas, and most importantly, they helped regulate temperature. During the evening, cooler air settled inside the courtyard. The surrounding walls created shade. Plants sometimes grew inside these spaces, and water jars were often stored nearby. Together, these elements created a cooler microclimate. Family members spent much of the evening inside these courtyards. They talked, shared meals, told stories, and gradually prepared for sleep. The atmosphere felt peaceful. The heat of the day slowly disappeared, and the body naturally relaxed. Tonight, imagine sitting inside such a courtyard. Palm leaves rustle softly overhead. A clay water jar stands nearby. Children play quietly. An elderly family member tells stories about the gods and ancient kings. The air feels cooler here than outside the house, not because of technology, but because of intelligent design. The Egyptians also understood the importance of rooftops. Flat roofs were common throughout Egypt, and during the hottest months these rooftops became outdoor bedrooms. As darkness arrived, families carried bedding upstairs. Reed mats were arranged carefully. Linen blankets were spread across sleeping areas, and everyone settled beneath the stars. The rooftop offered several advantages. First, it received more wind. Second, heat trapped inside the house remained below. And third, the open sky allowed heat from the body and bedding to dissipate naturally. For many Egyptians, rooftop sleeping became the most comfortable option available. Imagine stretching out upon a reed mat. The moon hangs above the Nile. A cool breeze brushes across your face. The sounds of the city fade into the background. Somewhere nearby, another family is already asleep. Further away, a dog barks softly. The atmosphere feels calm, safe, and deeply relaxing. Now let us discuss one of the most fascinating cooling techniques used in ancient Egypt: water evaporation. The Egyptians may not have understood the scientific details, but they clearly understood the effect. Large clay jars filled with water were common in homes. These jars were slightly porous. Tiny amounts of water seeped through the surface and evaporated. As evaporation occurred, heat was removed from the surrounding area. The water inside remained cooler than expected, and the air nearby felt slightly refreshed. People often position these jars strategically around living spaces. Some even placed damp cloths nearby to increase cooling effects. The principle is remarkably similar to certain modern cooling systems. Yet the Egyptians discovered it thousands of years earlier. Tonight, imagine reaching into a clay water jar after a scorching day. The water feels cool against your fingers. You take a drink. Instant relief spreads through your body. The simple technology of the clay jar becomes one of the most valuable tools in Egyptian life. Architecture also reflected social status. The homes of nobles were larger. Their courtyards were bigger. Their ventilation systems were more sophisticated. Some wealthy residences included decorative pools. These pools served aesthetic purposes, but they also helped cool surrounding air. As breezes moved across the water surface, temperatures became slightly more comfortable. Even luxury in ancient Egypt often revolved around controlling heat. The environment shaped everything. Rich or poor, everyone faced the same sun, everyone faced the same desert, and everyone needed sleep. As midnight approaches, much of Egypt rests quietly. The Nile continues flowing through darkness. Temple walls glow beneath moonlight, and countless homes demonstrate the brilliance of ancient design. These structures are not merely shelters, they are survival tools, carefully engineered environments designed to work alongside nature. The Egyptians understood that comfort comes from adaptation, not domination. They observed the movement of air, the behavior of heat, the cooling power of water, and they incorporated those lessons into every aspect of daily life. The result was extraordinary. A civilization capable of thriving in one of the hottest environments on Earth, and capable of sleeping peacefully during summers that modern people might consider unbearable. Tonight, as you imagine those mud brick walls, those shaded courtyards, those rooftop sleeping spaces, and those cool clay water jars, you begin to understand why ancient Egypt endured for thousands of years. Knowledge passed from generation to generation, simple solutions refined through experience, and a deep respect for the natural world. The stars continue shining above the desert. The breeze continues drifting across the rooftops, and the people of Egypt sleep comfortably inside homes that function like natural air conditioners. But our journey is not finished, because in the next part we'll discover how the mighty Nile River itself became one of the greatest cooling systems in the ancient world, and how its presence transformed every aspect of Egyptian sleep and daily life. For now, relax. Listen to the distant river. Feel the cool night breeze, and drift deeper into the peaceful summer nights of ancient Egypt. And as the people of Egypt slept peacefully inside their cleverly designed homes, another force worked silently through the night. A force more powerful than any fan, more important than any courtyard, and more valuable than any luxury enjoyed by kings or nobles: the Nile River. Tonight we continue our journey into the scorching summers of ancient Egypt and discover how the longest river in the ancient world helped millions of people survive and sleep in temperatures that could reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The Nile was not simply a river, it was life itself. It provided water, food, transportation, agriculture, trade, and perhaps most importantly, during the hottest months of the year, it provided relief from the heat. Imagine standing beside the Nile just before sunrise. The desert around you remains warm from the previous day. The sand still holds traces of yesterday's heat. Yet near the river, the air feels different. Slightly cooler, slightly fresher. A gentle breeze moves across the water. The smell of wet earth fills the air. Birds begin their morning songs, and the first rays of sunlight slowly appear along the horizon. For thousands of years, Egyptians noticed something important. Life near the Nile felt more comfortable than life deeper inside the desert. The river created its own climate. Its vast waters absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly at night. This moderated temperatures and reduced extremes. Villages built close to the Nile often experienced cooler evenings than settlements farther away. The difference was enough to improve sleep, enough to improve health, and enough to shape the entire civilization. Tonight, imagine yourself as an Egyptian farmer returning home after a long day of work. The afternoon heat has finally begun fading. The sky glows orange and gold. Palm trees cast long shadows across the ground, and cool air drifts from the river. You sit quietly beside the water. The surface reflects the evening sky like polished glass. The breeze touches your face, and for the first time all day, you feel comfortable. This nightly cooling became one of the most important parts of Egyptian life. Families often spent their evenings outdoors near the river. Meals were shared, Stories were told, children played, and people waited for temperatures to fall before preparing for sleep. The Nile transformed unbearable days into manageable nights. In many cities, the streets themselves were designed with the river in mind. Buildings faced prevailing winds coming from the water. Courtyards captured cooler air, and rooftop sleeping areas benefited from breezes travelling inland from the riverbanks. Even the placement of entire communities reflected an understanding of natural cooling. The Egyptians may not have possessed modern scientific instruments, but they possessed something equally valuable: observation. Generation after generation, they learned how air moved across the landscape. They learned where cooling breezes originated, and they learned how to position homes to maximize comfort. Tonight, a family gathers beside the Nile after sunset. The father sits quietly watching fishing boats return to shore. The mother prepares the evening meal. Children laugh while chasing one another across the riverbank. Nearby reeds sway gently in the breeze. The atmosphere feels peaceful, calm, and surprisingly cool compared to the intense heat of midday. This scene repeats throughout Egypt, not only in one village, not only in one city, but across an entire civilization. The river creates a rhythm that shapes daily life: morning activity, afternoon rest, evening relaxation, nighttime sleep. Everything revolves around the Nile. Now let us consider another important factor: humidity. Modern people often associate humidity with discomfort, yet in Egypt's extremely dry climate, a small amount of moisture in the air could actually improve comfort. The river introduced humidity into surrounding areas. This reduced the harsh dryness of the desert. Skin felt less irritated, breathing became easier, and nighttime conditions became more pleasant. The Nile softened the environment, creating a narrow green corridor through an otherwise unforgiving landscape. As darkness deepens, moonlight reflects across the water. Silver ripples move gently across the surface. Fishing boats drift quietly near shore, and countless Egyptians settle into sleep while listening to the sounds of the river. The experience is soothing. The constant movement of water creates a natural form of white noise, a soft background sound that masks distractions and encourages relaxation. Even today, many people sleep better when they hear flowing water. Ancient Egyptians enjoyed this benefit every night. Imagine lying upon a rooftop near the river. The stars shine brightly overhead. A breeze carries the scent of water and vegetation. Somewhere below, the Nile continues its endless journey toward the sea. You hear frogs calling from nearby reeds, occasional splashes from fish breaking the surface, and the distant sound of oars moving through water. These sounds become part of the sleep experience, part of the nightly rhythm of Egyptian life. For wealthy Egyptians, proximity to the river was highly desirable. Palaces and estates often occupied prime locations near the Nile. Large gardens surrounded these residences. Pools reflected moonlight, and carefully designed landscapes enhanced cooling effects. The wealthy understood the value of water, not only for status, but for comfort. Yet even ordinary villagers benefited. The river belonged to everyone. Its cooling influence extended far beyond royal property lines. Its breezes reached humble homes and simple farms. Its waters supported every level of society. Now let us imagine a particularly hot summer. Temperatures exceed 120 degrees during the afternoon. The sun dominates the sky without mercy. Even experienced labourers struggle beneath its intensity. Yet when evening arrives, the Nile begins working its familiar magic. Heat slowly escapes into the atmosphere. Cooler air forms above the water. Gentle winds begin moving inland, and relief arrives once again. The river cannot eliminate the heat completely, but it can reduce its severity, and sometimes that difference means everything. Throughout Egyptian history, countless travellers remarked upon the contrast between river life and desert life. Only a short distance separated comfort from hardship, green vegetation from barren sand. cooling breezes from oppressive stillness. The Nile created an oasis stretching across an entire nation. Without it, Egypt would never have become the civilization we know today, and without its cooling influence, sleeping through summer nights would have been far more difficult. Tonight, an elderly fisherman sits beside the water after midnight. The village around him sleeps quietly. The moon hangs above the river, and a gentle breeze moves through nearby reeds. He has spent his entire life beside the Nile. He knows its moods, its sounds, its rhythms, and he understands something important. The river gives more than water. It gives comfort, it gives peace, and it gives rest. Generation after generation, Egyptians depended upon that gift. As the night grows deeper, temperatures continue falling. The heat trapped inside walls begins dissipating. The rooftops cool, the courtyards become comfortable, and people drift into deeper sleep. The Nile remains their silent partner throughout the process, always moving, always flowing, always providing relief. Perhaps that is why the Egyptians viewed the river as sacred, because it touched every aspect of life: birth, work, food, religion, and sleep. Everything connected back to the Nile. Everything depended upon it. As dawn approaches, the eastern horizon begins glowing faintly. Soon another hot day will begin. Farmers will return to their fields. Merchants will open their shops. Builders will continue their work, and the sun will once again dominate the sky. But for now, the river continues protecting the sleeping world around it. Its waters shimmer beneath fading stars. Its breeze drifts gently through villages and cities, and ancient Egypt rests peacefully despite the intense heat that surrounds it. The Nile has become more than a river. It has become Egypt's greatest natural air conditioner, and one of the most important reasons millions of people could sleep comfortably during summers that reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit. But our journey is not finished, and as the cool breeze from the Nile drifted quietly through the sleeping cities of Egypt, another journey was beginning. A journey not across the desert, not across the river, but inside the human mind. For ancient Egyptians, sleep was far more than simple rest. It was a sacred doorway, a bridge between the world of the living and the mysterious realm of gods, spirits, and dreams. Tonight we leave behind the rooftops, courtyards, and cooling breezes that helped Egyptians survive the heat. Instead, we enter the fascinating spiritual world that surrounded sleep itself. Imagine yourself lying on a rooftop in Thebes. The heat of the day has finally faded. The stars shine brightly above you. The Nile glitters in the distance. The sounds of the city have disappeared. You close your eyes. Your breathing slows, and gradually you drift into sleep. For a modern person, this may seem ordinary, but to an Egyptian living 3,000 years ago, something extraordinary was happening. The moment sleep arrived, the boundary between worlds became thinner. Dreams were not viewed as random images created by the brain. Dreams were messages from gods, messages from ancestors, messages carrying warnings, guidance, or hidden knowledge. Throughout Egyptian history, people paid close attention to their dreams. A particularly vivid dream might influence important decisions. A dream could be discussed with priests. It could be interpreted as a divine sign, and in some cases it could even shape the future of an entire family. Imagine a farmer sleeping beside the Nile after a long day of work. That night he dreams of abundant crops growing taller than ever before. Golden grain stretches endlessly across the fields. The next morning he awakens feeling hopeful. To him, the dream may be a blessing from the gods, a sign that prosperity lies ahead. Meanwhile, a merchant dreams of stormy waters and damaged boats. Such a dream might be interpreted as a warning. Perhaps a future journey should be postponed. Perhaps caution is required. Whether these interpretations were accurate mattered less than the comfort they provided. Dreams helped Egyptians make sense of an uncertain world, and nowhere was uncertainty greater than in the harsh environment they inhabited. The desert could be unforgiving. The Nile could flood unexpectedly. Disease could appear without warning. Life was fragile. Dreams offered reassurance, guidance, and meaning. Now imagine entering a temple dedicated to sleep and healing. Yes, such places existed. Some Egyptians practiced what historians call dream incubation. People would visit sacred temples and spend the night there hoping to receive divine visions. Before sleeping, they performed rituals. Prayers were spoken, offerings were presented, incense filled the air. The goal was simple: receive wisdom directly from the gods through dreams. The temple grows quiet as night falls. Oil lamps flicker softly. The scent of incense drifts through stone corridors. Visitors settle onto mats and prepare for sleep. Outside, the warm desert night remains calm. Inside, anticipation fills the air. Perhaps tonight a god will speak. Perhaps tonight a problem will be solved. Perhaps tonight answers will finally arrive. For Egyptians, this possibility transformed sleep into something sacred. Even ordinary bedtime rituals reflected spiritual beliefs. Protective amulets were often placed near sleeping areas. Small charms depicting gods and goddesses guarded sleepers from harmful forces. One popular protector was Bes. Bes looked very different from most Egyptian gods. He was short, strong, and often depicted with a fierce expression. Yet despite his unusual appearance, Bes was beloved throughout Egypt. Families believed he protected homes, children, and sleeping individuals from evil spirits. Imagine a young child preparing for bed. Bes is carved onto a small amulet hanging near the sleeping area. Parents feel reassured, the child feels safe, and sleep arrives more easily. Another important figure was Taweret. The goddess often appeared as a combination of hippopotamus, lion, and crocodile features. To modern eyes, she may seem intimidating, but Egyptians viewed her as a protector, especially of mothers and children. Images of Taweret frequently appeared inside homes. Her presence offered comfort during the vulnerable hours of darkness. Nighttime carried both beauty and fear. The stars were magnificent. The air was cooler, but darkness also concealed danger. Wild animals, criminals, and unseen spiritual threats all seemed more powerful after sunset. Protective rituals helped people feel secure, and feeling secure made sleep easier. Now imagine a noble household preparing for the night. Servants extinguish unnecessary lamps. The family gathers briefly for prayers. Offerings may be placed before household shrines. A final drink of cool water is taken. Then everyone retires to their sleeping spaces. The atmosphere becomes calm, orderly, peaceful. These rituals create a sense of stability, a sense of control. Even today, many people follow bedtime routines for the same reason. Routines calm the mind. They signal that the day is ending, and they prepare the body for rest. Ancient Egyptians understood this instinctively. Although their rituals reflected different beliefs, the underlying purpose remained surprisingly familiar. Throughout the night, dreams unfold. Some are pleasant, others are mysterious. Some are quickly forgotten upon waking. Others remain vivid for years. Egyptian scholars even created dream interpretation guides. Certain symbols carried specific meanings. Animals, water, fire, temples, and stars could all represent different messages. People searched for patterns, connections, and lessons hidden within their dreams. Imagine waking before sunrise after experiencing an unusually vivid vision. The memory remains clear. Perhaps you saw a god standing beside the Nile. Perhaps you explored a magnificent temple. Perhaps a deceased ancestor spoke directly to you. The experience feels important. You spend the morning reflecting upon it, seeking understanding, seeking meaning. This practice connected sleep to everyday life. Dreams became part of decision-making, part of religion, and part of personal identity. As midnight passes, Egypt sleeps beneath an ocean of stars. The rooftops remain filled with resting families. The courtyards grow silent. The river flows endlessly through the darkness, and countless dreams unfold across the land. A farmer dreams of future harvests, a merchant dreams of distant journeys, a priest dreams of sacred rituals, a child dreams of adventure. Each dream contributes to the rich spiritual landscape of Egyptian society. Yet perhaps the most fascinating aspect is how these beliefs influenced emotional well-being. The Egyptians did not view sleep as wasted time. They viewed it as valuable, meaningful, and worthy of preparation. This attitude likely improved sleep quality itself. People approached bedtime with respect rather than frustration. They expected sleep to provide benefits, they welcomed it, and they built traditions around it. In many ways, this perspective remains relevant today. Modern life often treats sleep as an inconvenience. Ancient Egyptians treated it as a gift, a sacred opportunity for renewal. As the final hours of darkness approach, temperatures continue falling. The cool air drifting from the Nile creates ideal sleeping conditions. The stars begin fading slowly from the sky, and dreamers across Egypt remain wrapped in visions from another world. Soon dawn will arrive, the city will awaken, markets will reopen, boats will return to the river, and daily life will begin again. But for now, the night still belongs to dreams. The gods remain close, and sleep continues its quiet work, restoring bodies, calming minds, and carrying countless Egyptians through another hot summer night. Tonight we have explored the spiritual side of sleep in ancient Egypt, the dreams, the rituals, the protective gods, and the beliefs that transformed bedtime into something sacred. But our journey is almost complete, and as the final stars slowly faded above the Nile, ancient Egypt prepared for another sunrise. The darkness that had sheltered the land throughout the night was beginning to retreat. A faint golden glow appeared along the eastern horizon. Palm trees stood motionless in the still morning air. The river reflected the first light of day, and across the kingdom, millions of people slowly awakened. Some rose from simple reed mats placed on rooftops. Others emerged from cool mud brick homes. Priests awoke within temple complexes. Farmers stretched beside the riverbanks. Merchants prepared their shops, and nobles opened their eyes inside carefully designed sleeping chambers. Another hot day was beginning, another day that would eventually reach temperatures most modern people would find difficult to endure. Yet somehow, generation after generation, the Egyptians continued thriving. Tonight, in our final chapter, we bring together everything we have learned. Because the story of Egyptian sleep is not really about ancient beds, it is not really about rooftops, and it is not even about surviving 120-degree summers. At its heart, this story is about adaptation. The Egyptians understood something that modern civilization often forgets. Human beings are remarkably adaptable. When faced with challenges, we learn, we observe, we adjust, and over time we discover solutions. The Egyptians never had air conditioners. They never had electric fans. They never had insulated buildings powered by modern technology. Yet they still found ways to sleep comfortably, not because they conquered nature, but because they worked with it. Imagine yourself standing beside the Nile one final time. The river flows peacefully through the landscape. Birds move across the sky. The desert stretches endlessly beyond the green banks, and all around you are signs of a civilization that learned to understand its environment. Their homes captured breezes, their walls reduced heat, their schedules avoided the hottest hours, their clothing encouraged cooling, their rooftops provided nighttime comfort. Every aspect of daily life reflected observation and experience. Nothing was accidental. Everything evolved through centuries of practical knowledge. Modern people often view ancient civilizations as primitive. Yet when we look closely, we discover remarkable sophistication. The Egyptians studied the behavior of heat without thermometers. They understood airflow without engineering textbooks. They mastered natural cooling without electricity. And they did it so effectively that their civilization survived for thousands of years. Tonight, imagine an Egyptian family preparing for another evening. The day's work is finished. The sun has begun setting. Children laugh in a shaded courtyard. Parents share stories. The smell of freshly baked bread fills the air. Nearby, clay jars hold cool drinking water. The atmosphere feels calm. There is no rushing, no endless noise, no glowing screens demanding attention. Life follows a rhythm shaped by the natural world. As darkness arrives, the family moves gradually towards sleep. This rhythm may be one of the most important lessons ancient Egypt offers us. Modern life often separates us from natural cycles. Artificial lighting extends our days. Technology follows us into bed. Noise continues long after sunset. The Egyptians lived differently. Their evenings naturally slowed. Darkness signaled rest. The body followed the movement of the sun, and sleep became part of a larger daily rhythm. Perhaps this contributed to their ability to rest well, despite environmental hardships. Another lesson involves simplicity. The Egyptians did not rely upon complex systems. Many of their solutions were surprisingly simple. Thick walls, open courtyards, light clothing, cool water, shade, fresh air. These basic elements created comfort without consuming vast amounts of energy. Sometimes the most effective solutions are also the simplest. Now imagine a rooftop beneath the stars. A cool breeze drifts across the city. Families settle onto reed mats. The moon shines overhead. The Nile glimmers in the distance. The temperature continues falling as night deepens. There is something timeless about this scene. Something peaceful. Something deeply human. For thousands of years, people across the world have slept beneath open skies. They have listened to rivers, watched stars, and felt the coolness of nighttime air. The Egyptians remind us that comfort often comes from connection with the environment rather than isolation from it. Throughout this series, we have explored architecture, water, the Nile, bedtime rituals, dreams, social classes, and spiritual beliefs. Together, these elements created a complete system, a way of life designed to function within one of the hottest climates on Earth. The success of that system is extraordinary. Ancient Egypt became one of the longest-lasting civilizations in human history. Its monuments still stand, its stories still survive, and even its sleeping habits continue teaching valuable lessons. Now the sun rises higher above the horizon. Morning light spreads across temples and villages. The coolness of night begins fading. Soon the heat will return. Farmers will head toward the fields. Boats will move along the Nile. Merchants will open their market stalls, and another day of Egyptian life will begin. Yet everyone knows something important. Night will come again. The river will cool the air. The rooftops will welcome sleepers. The stars will return, and rest will once again be possible. This confidence is powerful. The Egyptians trusted the rhythms of nature. They trusted the cycle of day and night, and that trust created stability. Generation after generation, century after century, the same patterns continued. Even today, thousands of years later, we can still imagine those summer nights. The moon above the pyramids, the gentle sound of water moving through the Nile, the breeze drifting across rooftops, the smell of warm earth cooling after sunset, the quiet conversations of families preparing for sleep. These moments connect us to people who lived unimaginably long ago, people whose lives were different from ours in many ways, yet surprisingly familiar in others. They worked, they worried, they dreamed, they cared for their families, and at the end of each day they searched for comfort and rest, just as we do. Perhaps that is why history remains so fascinating. It reminds us that despite the centuries separating us, human beings remain connected by shared experiences, the desire for safety, the desire for peace, the desire for a good night's sleep. As the morning continues, Egypt fully awakens. The rooftops empty, the courtyards become busy, the city comes alive, and the night finally ends. Yet the lessons remain. Observe the world around you. Work with nature rather than against it. Value rest. Respect daily rhythms. And remember that comfort often comes from simple solutions. The ancient Egyptians understood these truths. Their survival depended upon them, and their success proved their value. Now our journey through the blazing summers of ancient Egypt comes to an end. We have travelled beside the Nile, explored ancient homes, climbed rooftop sleeping terraces, listened to stories of dreams and gods, and discovered how an entire civilization slept peacefully during temperatures reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The answer was never a single invention. It was never a single trick. It was a complete way of life, a culture built around adaptation, observation, patience, and wisdom. As the final image fades, imagine yourself resting beside the Nile one last time. The evening sky glows softly above the river. Palm trees sway in the distance. The desert stretches endlessly beyond the horizon. A cool breeze touches your face. The sounds of the ancient world grow quieter. The stars begin appearing overhead, and somewhere far away, an Egyptian family prepares for another peaceful night beneath the sky. Thank you for joining this journey through the ancient world. May your evening be peaceful, may your dreams be gentle, and may the calm wisdom of ancient Egypt follow you into a restful sleep. Good night, and sleep well.